Hi guys, it's Frecks here, back with another video. Today we'll be diving deep into something a little bit different, a series. In this series, we'll dissect the lives of former serial killers, some infamous, some fairly new. Together, we'll decipher whether or not these crimes were pure hatred or acts caused by past trauma or mental illness. So sit back, grab a drink or maybe even a snack, and enjoy the rain. Let me know in the comments what I should do next. Today's episode is on Jeffery Dahmer, or as his friends like to call him, Jeff. Let's jump right in. Jeff Dahmer, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, circa 1960. As a child, Dahmer was born to what was said to have been a loving family. A normal child, energetic and happy. But around age 4, after undergoing what could have been a fairly traumatic experience for a child, Dahmer underwent surgery to remove a hernia. After the procedure, he was said to have been increasingly withdrawn, and after birth of his younger brother, and various relocating during his teen years, he became very disengaged, seeming to be friendless, and disassociated with his surroundings. Around the age of 14, Dahmer claimed to have compulsions toward necrophilia and murder. And after his parents' divorce, this was said to have been the turning point from creating these thoughts into actions. By the time of Dahmer's first killing, his alcohol consumption had spun out of control. He had dropped out of school, where he attended Ohio State for just one term, and he enlisted in the Army in 1978 and was sent to Germany thereafter. When his drinking persisted, he was discharged in 1981. Later on, German authorities would later investigate possible connections between Dahmer and murders that took place during the same period of time. After being discharged, Dahmer returned back to Wisconsin, where he lived with his grandmother. And as his alcoholism pursued, he was later arrested in the following summer for apparently masturbating in front of 2 boys, where he received 1 year of probation. So now that we know a little bit about his backstory, let's get into the stats. Between the years of 1978 and 1991, he was said to have taken the lives of 17 males during that 13-year period. He sought out mostly men, where he usually met them at gay bars, malls, bus stops, and even just luring them home to promise them sex or money. He gave them drugs, alcohol, usually laced, and began by strangling them to death. He would have sex with the corpses, afterwards dismembering their bodies and disposing of them. He usually kept parts of their skulls or genitals as souvenirs. He frequently took photos of them in various stages of their murders. He used these to recollect afterward and relive the experience of what he had done. In June of 1978, Dahmer's first murder occurred. It was a young man, a hitchhiker, by the name of Stephen Hicks. Dahmer took the young man back to his home, where he proceeded to get the young man drunk. And after the boy tried to leave, he struck him over the head, proceeding to strangle him with a barbell. Soon after, Dahmer dismembered the corpse. He packed the body into plastic bags and buried them behind his parents' home. Later on, he would examine the crushed bones and proceed to scatter them across a wooden ravine. Dahmer's next victim didn't happen until September of 1987. This victim, also by the name of Stephen, went with Dahmer and checked into a hotel room where they drank and had a little fun. Later on, Dahmer woke up with no memory of the previous night's activities. And when he did, the man was dead. He proceeded to buy a large suitcase to take his body to his grandmother's basement, where he then dismembered the man and masturbated to the corpse before disposing of the remains. Shortly after, Dahmer proceeded to kill 2 more people, bringing them both back to his grandmother's home, dismembering their bodies, and disposing of them. She had no knowledge of his activities, but got tired of his late-night back and forths in her house. So, she did what any other fed-up parent or grandparent would do and told him to leave. In September of 1989, Dahmer had an extremely lucky escape, an encounter with a 13-year-old boy. This resulted in a sexual exploitation charge, along with second-degree sexual assault. He pled guilty, claiming that the boy appeared to be much older. Later on, while awaiting his sentencing, Dahmer again put his grandmother's basement to use. In 1989, of March, he lured, drugged, strangled, sodomized, photographed, dismembered, and disposed of an aspiring model's body by the name of Anthony Sears. Later on his trial, Dahmer's defense said that he didn't need to be incarcerated, but that he needed treatment. The judge seemingly agreed and gave him a 1-year prison sentence on day release. This allowed Dahmer to work in the day and return to prison at night. This was followed by a 5-year probationary sentence. Dahmer only served 10 months of his sentence and was granted early release, where he then briefly lived with his grandmother. Shortly after, he moved back to his own apartment. During those years, Dahmer's body count went from 4 to 17. With his victims, he began to develop rituals which progressed into experimenting. He began drilling holes into the victims' skulls and even injecting them with muriatic acid while they were still alive. On May 27th of 1991, Dahmer's neighbor, Sandra Smith, called the police. She reported an Asian boy running naked in the street. After then proceeding to speak with Dahmer, who said that the boy was 19 years old and in fact his lover, the police came to the conclusion that the boy was actually 14 years old and coincidentally the brother of the young teen that Dahmer had molested 3 years earlier. Later on that day, the police then escorted Dahmer and the young boy home, not wanting to be in the mix of a homosexual domestic disturbance. So they took a curious look around, a quick one, before proceeding to leave. After leaving, Dahmer proceeded to kill the young man and went on with his usual rituals. Had they even conducted a small search, they would have found the body of Dahmer's 12th victim, Tony Hughes. And before finally being arrested, Dahmer went on to kill 4 more men. Now that we've covered the foundation, let's get into Dahmer's pickup. During that same July, 2 Milwaukee policemen found a man, age 32, by the name of Tracy Edwards, walking around the streets, handcuffed. When they decided to look further into it, the man claimed that some weird dude had drugged and restrained him. He led them to the apartment. When they arrived, they asked for the keys to the handcuffs. The man exclaimed that the knife that he was being threatened with was in the bedroom. When the officers went to corroborate, they found Polaroids. The photographs were pictures of dismembered bodies, casually lying around on the floor. Dahmer was subdued by officers. Subsequent searches revealed a head in the refrigerator, 3 more in the freezer, and a catalog of other horrors, including preserved skulls, jars containing genitalia, and an extensive gallery of Polaroid photographs of all of his victims. His trial began January of 1992. The defense offered gruesome details of his behavior and proof that only someone insane could commit such terrible acts. Dahmer initially pleaded not guilty to all charges, despite having confessed to the killings during the police interrogation. But he eventually changed his plea to guilty by virtue of insanity. After the jury chose to believe the prosecution's assertion, on February 15th of 1992, they returned for approximately 10 hours of deliberation, where they found him guilty and sane on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison, and in that May, a 16th term was tacked on. Dahmer apparently adjusted pretty well in prison. At first, he was kept apart from the general population. Later on, he eventually convinced authorities to allow him to integrate. After reading books and seeing photos sent by his father, he found religion, and he was granted permission by Columbia Correctional Institution to be baptized by a local pastor. But on November 28th of 1994, he was killed by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking by me. With all the information that you have now, what do you think? Was it pure hatred, or was it insanity? As individuals, we never know what traumatic experience can affect someone's life, their childhood, their adulthood. But is this an excuse to pardon the harmful things that this man did to so many lives? It was consecutive. It was back to back. It was malicious, disgusting, and gruesome. I think his plea of insanity was pure bullshit. He was into some crazy things, and the evidence is all there. He purposely kept his evidence confined, hidden away from plain sight, and despite some getaways, was still able to take the lives of so many. All of the lies he curated shows pure intent to do harm. But maybe the traumatic experiences he went through as a child had some effect on his later decisions. Does it make it right? Definitely not. But at the end of the day, what we do know is that this man was the definition of pure evil.